Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel for returning viewers. And if you are new to the channel, welcome to Larry's House of Hockey. I'm very happy that you're here. So, we're up to 1995 in my memorable playoff series playlist here. And, it's been a little bit since I've, done a memorable series. Now, there was a couple of them in 1995 that I was looking at. And I thought, because there was a couple of them that I was looking at that I could do, because there were some real memorable series in there. One series that I thought about looking at, but I thought, I looked at this one in the 1992 video. What I really want to do with 3 years, what I really want to look at the same basically same series, same two teams and everything, which would have been Pittsburgh and Washington, which would have been basically the same result. The Capitals had a 3-1 series lead and blew it. So I thought about, what one to necessarily do. I kind of had to, whittle it down. Well, I thought, this one was pretty memorable, mainly because this was the New Jersey Devils' first ever Stanley Cup. So I thought, why not take a look at that one? So we're looking at the 1995 Stanley Cup Final. Now, this is memorable mainly because of a couple of things. The season is definitely memorable because this was the first real lockout that we saw. Now there was a strike, a players' strike, right before the playoffs in 1994. Didn't last very long. Didn't really hinder the start of the playoffs or anything. But it kind of was a foreshadowing of things to come, especially for the next season, because we get into this season and we have a lockout. Collective bargaining agreement is up. The players and the owners, of course, at loggerheads here, can't quite get a deal figured out. And the owners were wanting a salary cap back then. 1995, the owners were talking about, we need a salary cap. And of course, the players are like, yeah, no, we're not doing a salary cap. This would be a big time fight 10 years later from this one, because this one we were a little worried. Could we lose the entire season? Fortunately, we did not. But it was getting down there. It was getting down to that point where it was possible. Not realizing what was going to happen 10 years later. But they figure it out. We get a 48-game season. And, Detroit at this time, they were starting to get on. They were starting to come up. They were starting to be a team to be reckoned with in the Western Conference. And they were getting very dangerous because, people were always kind of saying, they were called the Detroit Dead Things for years. Well, this is when they start, this is when they're starting to ascend here. And they had to have, this 48-game season, they had a heck of a season. They had, in 48 games, they had a record of 33-11-4, 70 points. That was the best record in the NHL during the lockout shortened season. 70 points in 48 games. That's pretty darn good. And needless to say, they won the President's Trophy. You win 33 of 48 games. It's a pretty good season. It's definitely a real good season. And the team they ended up playing in the final, they had a pretty good season too. Not exactly the greatest regular season, because in 48 games, the New Jersey Devils record was 22-18-8. So not fabulous, only 52 points. They had 52 points in 48 games. That was good enough. That was fifth They were the number 5 seed in the Eastern Conference this season. So I mean, they weren't fabulous, but they both put together pretty good playoff runs. Now the Detroit Red Wings, their journey to the Stanley Cup Final started against the Dallas Stars, the former Minnesota North Stars. They're now the Dallas Stars. They defeat the Dallas Stars in the Western Conference quarterfinal, 4-1. In the conference semifinal, they sweep the San Jose Sharks 4-0. Then in the Western Conference final, they play one of their arch rivals, the Chicago Blackhawks. They dispatch them 4-1. So the Red Wings trek to the finals over Detroit, San Jose, and Chicago. They only lost twice. So they got to the Stanley Cup Final. They had a record of 12-2 in the playoffs. That's why we're thinking this is Detroit's year. This is going to be the year for the Detroit Red Wings. Little did we know, New Jersey, their trip to the Stanley Cup Final, in the Eastern Conference quarterfinal, they dispatched the Boston Bruins 4-1. Then, in the Eastern Conference semifinal, they ran into, again, another familiar foe for the Devils is the Pittsburgh Penguins. They defeat the Penguins 4-1. Now, mind you, the Penguins, getting into that second round, had to come from 3-1 down against the Washington Capitals. Something that it's when it comes to those two teams meeting, it's basically death, taxes, and Penguins come from behind 3-1 against the Capitals and win. So that's what the Penguins ended up doing, coming back from 3-1 down against the Capitals. But then they run into the New Jersey Devils, and the New Jersey Devils, they weren't playing. They beat the Penguins 4-1. Then in the conference final, it's their toughest series against the Philadelphia Flyers. It took 6 games to beat the Philadelphia Flyers in what was a really good series. That was a series I was looking at that one too to potentially preview or review for this playlist, was New Jersey and Philadelphia. I was really close to doing that one. I really thought about that. Because Philadelphia, kind of like Detroit, they were kind of on the come up. And, unfortunately, Philadelphia, they had a pretty darn good team in the 90s. They never really got anything to show for it. But the Devils, going into the final, they had a record of 12-4 entering the Stanley Cup Final. So we're looking at these two teams, and you're talking an 18-point difference between the two teams. And this is the season that a lot of people are thinking, all right, this is Detroit's time. It's time for the Red Wings to claim the crown. Little did we know, huh? So we get into game one. And the Devils, the Devils ended up looking pretty good here. The Devils win game 1 2-1, and let's take a look at it. So there's no scoring in the first period. We get into the second period, and the Devils strike first on the power play. It is Stefan Richer from Tommy Albolin and Neil Broughton. Neil Broughton, of course, we all know, member of the 1980 U.S. Olympic Miracle on Ice team that won the gold medal. Spent many years as a member of the Minnesota North Stars. And, he did go to Dallas for a little bit, and then he moved on to New Jersey. And he ended up being a big part of New Jersey. So Broughton gets an assist on that first Devils goal at 9:41. Richer from Albolin and Broughton. 1-0 Devils. Then, on the power play, Detroit fights back. At 13:08, it is Dino Ciccarelli, former teammate of Neil Broughton on the Minnesota North Stars. So Cicerelli gets on the board from Lidstrom and Coffey. Nicholas Lidstrom, Paul Coffey. 1-1. Not bad. Good game so far. Not really knowing this is the year that the neutral zone trap really becomes a big part. And this is basically what kicks off what would be called the dead puck era. And the dead puck era lasted for about 10 years up until really the lockout season that lost the whole season. So it's 1-1 after 2 periods. So we get into the third period, and then the Devils, they get the game winner at 3:17. It is Claude Lemieux from John McClain and Tom Chorsky. That gives the Devils a 2-1 lead, and that's the final. Very low scoring game, only 2-1. Devils hang on. Now the goaltenders, you have Martin Brodeur for New Jersey. You got Mike Vernon for Detroit. Marty Brodeur goes 16 of 17 for a .941 save percentage. 17 shots. That neutral zone trap that New Jersey really started implementing. Oh, yeah. I mean, this was a Red Wing team that, very high flying. Very, very good. Definitely knew how to put points on the board. And that neutral zone trap for New Jersey it stymied them. Because you look at a lot of the shots as we'll go through this. It's crazy what New Jersey did to the Detroit Red Wings. So yeah, Brodeur only faced 17 shots. He stopped 16 of them for a .941 save percentage. Mike Vernon, he stopped 26 of 28 for a .929 save percentage. So, a 20, getting outshot 28-17. Yeah, it was just a sign of things to come for this series in that first game with Detroit only getting 17 shots. So we go to game 2. Game 2, again, New Jersey looking good. New Jersey, of course, wins this game 4-2. We go and look at this one. Detroit actually strikes first, though. Detroit gets on the board first. No goals again in the first period in game 2. So in the second period, on the power play at 7:17, it is Vyacheslav Kozlov from Dino Cicerelli and Sergei Fedorov. 1-0 Detroit. Good start, good start for the Wings. Okay, get a little momentum in there. Yeah, it doesn't last long. Because then at 9:40, so just a little over a couple minutes later, it is John McClain from Scott Niedermayer and Neil Broughton. The Devils tie it at 1. So it's a 1-1 tie, and it stays that way till the end of the second period. So again, just like in game 1, we're tied 1 apiece at the end of 2. So we get into the third period, and Detroit reclaims the lead. At 1:36, it is Sergei Fedorov from Doug Brown and Slava Kozlov. So it is 2-1 in favor of the Red Wings. I'm thinking, all right, let's see if Detroit can keep this momentum going. Well, not so much. Because at 9:47, tying the game for New Jersey at 2 apiece, it is Scott Niedermayer from Jim Dowd. So 9:47, we get it to where we're back to a tie game, and yeah. So then at 18:36, and yes, this is all the third. I was looking at it like, wait a minute, did I write down the third period? Yes, this is all the third period here because that's right. It was tied 1-1 after 2. So at 18:36. Jim Dowd scores what would be the game-winning goal for the Devils from Sean Chambers and Tommy Albolin. 3-2 in favor of New Jersey. And then scoring into the empty net for the insurance goal at 19:39 It is Stefan Richer from Scott Niedermayer. That makes it 4-2 for the New Jersey Devils. That is the final. So New Jersey goes into Detroit and takes the first two in Detroit. Now here, look at the goaltending. Again, Martin Brodeur stopped 16 of 18. Only 18 shots he faced in this game for an .889 save percentage. Mike Vernon for the Detroit Red Wings stopped 19 of 22 for an .864 save percentage. So the Devils are literally within the first two games, didn't even get 20 shots in either of the first two games. Just unbelievable defensive play by the Devils. Going into Detroit and taking those first two games. So we go into game three. And game three, this series is pretty much a wrap, basically, after game three. Because game three, we actually get goals in the first period finally, in game three. The first period, the Devils strike first. It is Bruce Driver from Neil Broughton and John McClane. And when I say John McClane, I'm not talking Bruce Willis in Die Hard. But yeah, John McClane gets an assist. It's Driver from Broughton and McClane. It's 1-0 New Jersey on the power play at 10:30. Then at 16:52, the Devils, they broaden their lead. At 16:52, it is Claude Lemieux from Bobby Carpenter and Scott Stevens. 2-0 New Jersey after two periods. Then we get into the second period, and this game just kind of gets out of hand here. At 6:59, it is Neil Broughton from Stevens and McClane, 3-0 New Jersey. Then, at 8:20, it is Randy McKay from Bobby Holik and Bruce Driver, 4-0 Devils. This is just insane. I remember, and again, this is a series I remember watching. I remember watching this on TV. This is one of the first ones, I think in 1995, it's one of the first ones where the finals were on Fox. It's like Fox Sports. So, but it wasn't really like Fox Sports, but it was on Fox. And it was interesting because that's when they were experimenting. You take the slap shot and you have the little red ring. You'd watch the line kind of go. It was interesting. It was interesting. I mean, you had on Fox nonetheless. But yeah, it's 4-0 after two periods. And this game, it's all New Jersey here. So we get into the third period, and at 8:14, the Devils make it 5-0 on the power play. Bobby Holik from Bill Guerin and Stefan Richer. Of course, Bill Guerin, this was, I believe, his first Stanley Cup as a player. Of course, we're all familiar now with Bill Guerin. He is the general manager of the Minnesota Wild. So it's 5-0 Devils. But Detroit, they try to fight back in whatever way they can here, even though it's kind of a little too late here. But and Holik did that on the power play at 8:14 from again Guerin and Richer. Also on the power play at 16:57, Detroit gets on the board, so they do not get shut out. It is Fedorov from Slava Fetisov and Doug Brown. So it's 5-1. And then at 18:27 on the power play again, Detroit, they make it a little more respectable. It is Steve Yzerman from Ray Shepard and Nick Lidstrom. It's 5-2. That is definitely not enough. So New Jersey goes up 3-0 with a 5-2 win in game three against Detroit. And again here, you had Mike Vernon. Mike Vernon stopped 16 of 20 shots for an .800 save percentage. He is then replaced by Chris Osgood, and he stopped 10 of 11 for a 909 save percentage. So 31 shots faced by the Red Wings goaltenders. And this one, Detroit actually got more than 20 shots in this game. Marty Brodeur stopped 22 of 24. So a 917 save percentage. And the Devils are up 3-0. And again, I remember watching this and just being in awe, just thinking, how is this happening? Because I watched Detroit. I watched what Detroit had done. We're talking, 1995. This is my junior year in high school. So this was insane watching. And of course, I'm in the middle of taping the finals every year, and which somewhere in a tote somewhere, I've still got the VHS cassette tapes, which I would love to figure out how to transfer to DVD. I think that would be kind of neat to have, but I'm not exactly sure how to do that. But it'd be kind of cool to do that. But yeah, so the Devils are up 3-0. We go into Game 4, and again, New Jersey, they just clamp down. Detroit just has no answer. And in the first period, at 1:08 of the first period, so right off the hop, 1:08 into the first, it is Neil Broughton putting the Devils on the board from Richer and Chorsky, 1-0 New Jersey. But Detroit, not quite a minute later, they tie the game. It is Fedorov from Marty Lapointe and Slava Fetisov. So they tie the game at 1. Okay. That's looking decent. Then Detroit gets the lead. Something that didn't happen very often at all in this series. Shorthanded, it is Paul Coffey at 13:01 from Doug Brown and Sergei Fedorov. 2-1 Detroit. I believe that was, if I look back here, I think that was only the second time that the Red Wings had a lead the entire series. They only had the lead twice in this entire series. So the Red Wings are up 2-1. And then, of course, it doesn't stay that way, because then at 17:45, it is Sean Chambers from Bruce Driver and John McClane. Again, not from Die Hard. Ties the game at 2 apiece. That is the score. That is the score after the first period of Game 4. So we're like, okay, we got a good game here. 2-2. All right. Well, then we get into the second period, and at 7:56, getting what would be the Stanley Cup winner, Neil Broughton from Niedermeyer and Guerin. 3-2 New Jersey. That is the score after 2 periods. Then we get into the third period. At 7:46, for a little insurance, it is Sergei Brylin from Brian Ralston and Bill Guerin. That is 4-2 in favor of the Devils. And then at 12:32 to, basically, put the game away for sure. 12:32, Sean Chambers from Sergei Brylin and Bill Guerin, 5-2. That is your final. The New Jersey Devils win the Stanley Cup 4-0. Mike Vernon stopped 21 of 26 for an 808 save percentage, and Marty Brodeur stopped 14 of 16 shots for an 875 save percentage. So you look at these 4 games, and this is the crazy thing. Brodeur, 17 shots faced in Game 1, 18 shots faced in Game 2, 24 in Game 3, and then only 16 in Game 4. That is some crazy numbers. 3 of the 4 games, Detroit could not manage 20 shots. This is a Detroit Red Wings team that won 33 of 48 games. They looked incredible going through the Western Conference. They ran into this Devils team. They ran into that neutral zone trap, and What? What could they do? There was nothing they could do. New Jersey just owned them. So the Devils win their first ever Stanley Cup with a 4-0 sweep. Claude Lemieux wins the Conn Smythe Trophy, which I'll never forget just how happy he was. He won that trophy. He goes, he grabs the trophy. He's in tears. I remember the announcers, which I believe one of them was Doc Emmerich, talking about how he had a brother with Down syndrome or whatever, and he was obviously Claude. He was one of his brother's biggest fans, and he did a lot for his brother, and he ended up dedicating that Conn Smythe win to his brother. I remember them saying that on the broadcast. I thought that was really cool. He's taken the trophy. He kisses it. He's in tears, and it was just a very emotional thing for Claude Lemieux, and very, very fitting, very cool for him. And this ended up being, what was it? What was this? This was Claude's, I think, second Stanley Cup. Of course, Claude Lemieux would become pretty famous the year after this, which then really kickstarted the rivalry between the Detroit Red Wings and the team that would become the Colorado Avalanche. But in this one, New Jersey wins 4-0. Claude Lemieux wins the Conn Smythe Trophy, and the neutral zone trap is in full force here. And and this basically would become what would become the start of what would be called the dead puck era. And that dead puck era lasted up until about 2004. So let me know what you guys think of this particular video. Which team were you cheering for in the final? Were you cheering for Detroit? Were you cheering for New Jersey? Or were you a fan of any of the other teams that they might have knocked out? So let me know what you guys think in the comments section. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Please, for me, tell all your friends. Let your friends know about the channel. Also, too, if you'd like to share this video or any other video from the channel, from this playlist or any other playlist or video from the channel, if you want to share them with friends, with family, go right ahead. That would be greatly, greatly appreciated. And again, I've got my nice little logo here for the channel. If those are something you might be interested in, let me know in the comment section. And yeah, so that's the memorable series from 1995. Again, let me know your thoughts in that comment section. Let the comments fly. And yeah, so this is like I said, this is fun to do. The next series for 1996, again, there's a couple different ones for 1996 that I could do for sure. And yeah, there's two of them, and oh boy, it's kind of a toss up on what one of them I would like to do, because both of them from the 96 series, or from the 1996 playoffs, the two that I'm looking at, boy, they're very memorable in many ways. So again, let me know in the comments section what you guys think. And yeah, hit like, hit subscribe, share with your friends, and yeah, I will see you guys again real soon.